The study showed the causes of 111,000 state highway accidents ran the gamut of human error to vehicle defects. In the human error category, excessive speed and drunk driving were listed in prominent spots. Vehicle defects included brake failure and tire blowouts. State Road Builders Association officer Bill Hughes pointed out the serious fatality standing of the state of Alabama.
The highway fatality rate in the state of Alabama is 3.94 deaths, roughly 4 deaths, for 100 million miles of vehicle travel. This is the statistic that is 15% above the national average.
Road information official Frank Stansberry gives this advice to Alabama motorists.
I would say drive very slowly and very carefully, pay attention, drive defensively, select the newest, widest route available, and do it at a time when traffic is apt to be the lightest. Drive defensively is the only clue I could give to a person making this trip.
Okay, as a result of this study, in the same living room situation, what would you advise this person to do as a citizen in terms of getting in touch with the people who they elected to office to get something done about this?
If I were truly concerned about the health of myself and my family and my friends on the highways, I would contact someone with the ability to allocate more funds to the highway maintenance and upgrading program and tell them that my life and that of my family and my friends is worth something to me, and I would appreciate them devoting some time the next time they meet to fixing the conditions of these roads, because I didn't want to be killed on them.
We were told today that it would take $728 million to repair 17,000 miles of deteriorating roads and bridges in the state of Alabama, and that the money must be appropriated now by the state or federal governments. Or we are told by officials it'll cost more in dollars, and most importantly, in lives lost in fatal traffic accidents around the state. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Well, this is a dead horse. I'm sorry we have to beat again, but as a member of the Armed Services Committee and number 2 on the ranking on the minority side, I have to travel all over the world, everywhere we have men stationed or whether we have conflicts. I've been to Vietnam 4 times. I've been to most places around the world where we have weapons that we sell or men stationed, where we have dependents, and as long as I'm on the Armed Services Committee, I'll continue to do my job.
Okay, what about the charge of not caring enough to campaign in the district?
Well, again, that's an old ploy. Now, we're still in session. I will fly back this evening after I leave you, and we will be in session the rest of this week. We've been in session now and won't adjourn for a week. I can't be there and do my job and to be down here campaigning too, so we just do the best we can.
Okay, and another charge states that you're liberal with the taxpayers' money, but yet you're very conservative with your own.
Well, my wife says that too. She says I'm conservative with my own at least, but I have the most conservative voting record of any member of the Alabama delegation, and that's a matter of record. And it's very easily proven, and I think my opponent knows this too.
One of Maxwell Air Force Base's former commanders, retired General Alvin Gillum, today came out with a statement he says will put to rest any fears that Maxwell's future is declining. Afraid that some statements from political candidates will mislead the public, General Gillum told WSFA TV News that as he sees it, the future of the base is secure.
Maxwell is ideal for its mission, professional military education, the mission assigned to it in the late 40s. It has facilities that no other airfield in the country has, or no other air base for that purpose. Those academic buildings out there, the library, the auditoriums, were put together for that one purpose. And in my wildest dreams, I can't visualize the Air Force leaving Maxwell, as some people seem. A lot of people apparently have been concerned they might. Now, I don't say that critically, because people in the area only know what they hear the politicians say, and I can appreciate how they have some apprehension. Big payroll at Maxwell, a lot of people jobs. Maxwell really is an officer and civilian base. The enlisted population is small in contrast to the operational bases, tactical bases. A lot of jobs are at risk. But the Air Force is right now in the same position many businesses are in, and the defense establishment as a whole is in. It's in a position of trying to get as much capability as it can for its money. And I cannot conceive of a situation other than an all-out war where that program, or the professional military education program of the Air Force, would be abandoned. And as long as it's in being, it's going to be at Maxwell, I would think.
Gillum says he's not trying to supersede present base commander General Raymond Furlong. He says it's just that as a retired commander, he can make a statement involving a political issue, while those still in the service try to remain separate from the seesaw of statements in the political arena. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The Air Force would be abandoned.
A large crowd was on hand this afternoon as the new blood facilities of the Montgomery area chapter of the American Red Cross was dedicated. Governor George Wallace cut the ribbon to officially open the center. The governor also received a special national award for his long and dedicated service to the American Red Cross.
I am one who has been the beneficiary of those who have been blood donors. And I told that Mary Emma Farmer that the way sometimes I acted, I think I have a little of him in me.
The new blood drawing and processing laboratory was built as an annex to the present building at 364 South Ripley Street. It cost a total of $400,000, including the equipment inside. A complete laboratory facility provides for testing and processing blood, consultation services for hospital cross-matching problems, preparing blood components, washing, freezing, and thawing of red blood cells, and hepatitis testing. The new facility also houses office for the local United Way. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Normally, this machine would be processing the last of the paychecks for the pay period ending this coming Sunday, but instead it's finalizing some old bills for fiscal year 1978. President Carter's veto of the Defense Appropriations Bill and Congress' inability to override that veto sent the measure back to committee. But in the meantime, fiscal year 1979 began October 1st, and without a defense bill, that means no budget and no paycheck for servicemen and civilian personnel. At Maxwell Air Force Base alone, that amounts to take-home pay of approximately $1.6 million for this pay period.
Well, for those people that we pay here locally, and it's about 800 that we process checks for, we are proceeding with processing those checks, and we are just holding them in our vault until the president actually signs a bill, and when he does, then it will take us about 2 hours to sign those checks and get them in the mail, so they'll go out to the people here. Now, we have about, of that 4,000, about 3,200 people actually get paid through the Federal Reserve System from our central finance office in Denver. And of course, as soon as the president signs the bill, then the Federal Reserve System will be crediting people who have their money sent from the central office in Denver through the Federal Reserve System to their bank. Their accounts will be credited within about 4 hours after the president signs the bill.
Captain Sargent adds that he's expecting a delay of 1 to 4 days before the checks are received. Janet May, WSFA TV News.
Measured service would essentially allow the consumer to pay for what is consumed. Those who use the telephone more would pay a little more. Those who use it less would pay less. And this is in line with a lot of the pricing changes that are coming about throughout the telephone industry. Directory assistance repricing, 25-cent coin calls, this sort of thing. So again, it is essentially an effort to allow those who are using more, pay more, allow those who are using less to pay less.
And you're talking about on a local level, usage level.
Right. We're talking, we're talking about local service.
In other another 2 months.
Brad Gessner has been involved in the mental health field for 28 months, the last 18 as director of the Montgomery Mental Health Authority. In that time, he's captured the respect of all the people he works with, and the sad news of his resignation has prompted many requests that he reconsider his decision. Many signed a petition circulated in Montgomery asking for his reconsideration of the resignation effective October 31st. Why has he decided to quit now?
Well, there are no individual specific reasons. It's just that I think we've accomplished some of the things we set out to do, and now I feel a personal urge to look into some other things.
What has this man done to spur such admiration? That's what we asked Montgomery Area Mental Health Association Director Kathy Sullivan.
We feel that he's done a very good job as the director of the authority. A couple of things in particular, he has, along with his staff, has arranged for them to and has gotten approval of an operations grant from the federal government, $550,000, which will, really amount to a lot more services, mental health services in our area. They have gotten their care house, which is an outpatient alcohol counseling service, moved to a very decent home where beforehand it was about to fall down.
Would you say he's turned things around?
Yeah, and there was a lot that needed to be turned around, and he did a good job at that.
It's comments like those that turn a lion into a lamb.
I really could even get a little emotional about it, frankly.
Gessner says he plans to stay in the Montgomery area, even though he says he's not sure what he'll be doing. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Elmore County has approximately 42,000 people, but there are 15,000 here, so we have more than a third of the people and yet have no doctors, while the other parts of Elmore County have at least 22 doctors serving the approximately 27,000 people. Now we're going to include in this program not only the medical care, which comes under primary medical service, but also a number of health programs, such as family planning, prenatal care, health for adolescents, health for the aging, and so forth.
How many people do you plan to serve?
We expect to serve all of the 15,000 and perhaps more because of our unique location, being close to Prattville and Autauga County and in the western section of Elmore County. So it would be more than 15,000 people. Now, the first year, we have estimated that we should get about a fourth of that.
I think what this means to PTA members all over this nation, that PTA was asked to participate. And of course, funds for this educational seminar are provided by the Japanese and the U.S. governments through their Japan-U.S. Friendship Commission. So I think it's a real honor that PTA was asked to participate. And it will be at the briefing, I'm sure, when I will know exactly what will be expected of me to bring back. But certainly I do plan to take quite a few slides. I'm taking a ledger that I can make entries into every night about my reactions to the experiences of that day.
Now, I notice that there are some questions concerning the Equal Rights Amendment, and I've made my position known on that for a long time, that I'm opposed to the Equal Rights Amendment. I feel like that we do not need this to be a part of our federal judiciary, where that's exactly where it will go, into the federal courts. I think the Bible covers our relationship, and that should be our rule and our law. And I recognize that there are some elements of discrimination that may exist, and I am dedicated to remove that discrimination that does exist in this state, but we don't need the Equal Rights Amendment to do it. I also stand firmly for the right to work law. That is one of the questions that was down that you would like for us to answer tonight. And the other question, of course, about tax reform, and I have this, the last of last week and this week, I've been talking about the building of a tourism system in this state, which would bring in quality individuals, a balanced tourism system, so that we can do away with some taxes that are very much a part of our lives today. And the number one tax that I have said that we wanted to do away with in 1979, and this would be our goal, and this would be the way that my administration would be headed, to do away with the tax first on utilities, in 1980 to do away with the tax on prescription drugs, in 1981 to do away with the tax on basic food items, and I think those taxes need to be removed.
I advocate that we now pass in the Congress a bill to reduce everyone's income tax over a 3-year span 33.33%. And what would that do? That means that the average working man and woman could catch up with inflation without requesting a raise and allow business and individuals to adjust to a quietening down of inflation. At the same time, it would move up the economy, move it up so rapidly until there would be no excuse for any American, able-bodied, to be on a welfare roll. I think you ought to get them off the welfare roll and put them on a payroll so that they might work with honor and integrity.
I haven't given a positive answer to that, but I can tell you that I think that every man, woman, and child in the state of Alabama that is knowledgeable at all of the mental health situation in this state is aware of the phenomenal progress that's been made in mental health in the last 5 or 6 years. And I know that my attorneys, or the board's attorneys, in all of their allegations and averments and answers to the court, have always forcefully and clearly pointed out that we are in compliance, or at the very least substantial compliance, with the court's directives of 1972.
Well, I understand that you're a bit concerned about the fact that the mental health board staff now has to direct its attention to the mental illness institutions instead of concentrating on the mental retardation institutions.
This does disturb me because really litigation has become the primary function of the department for the last 6 to 8 months. And I am of the very firm opinion that the job of the mental health department is to care for those that are committed to our care on the mental retardation and the mental illness side in the various institutions. And I think it is a tragic consequence that we're having to redirect these efforts into litigation. I think there's been a tremendous overdose of litigation, and as you know, the board has twice mandated me to do all that's within my power and to use all the resources of the department to bring this litigation to some orderly conclusion. I am disturbed over the fact that the plaintiffs, amici, on the very last afternoon of the time allotted for them, a 2.5-year period, to prepare their case in the mental retardation institutions, on that last afternoon would have an order served on us opening up new areas in the mental illness. I think it was legal trickery, to tell you the truth, and I think it was an effort on them, on their part, to cause our lawyers to be completely overburdened as they are preparing a defense in the mental retardation suits.
Is there anything you can do to kind of combat this, quote, legal trickery?
Well, the only thing we can do is to prepare the very best defense that we can, and I have instructed our legal staff to not divert 1 iota of effort from the mental retardation suits, but to continue, as they have for the last year or so here, to prepare the best possible defense, because I think it's important to the state and to the people of the state. In fact, I think it's important to the court that both sides of this be very clearly presented. And this is what we intend to do. And in this, I think if you expose the tactics that's being used against you, and the court clearly understands this and comes to understand that there are definitely strong arguments on the side of the defendants in this case, that we have done our job. And this is what we've set out to do.
Are you going to comment any on the outcome of this at all?
I have been a lawyer for some 35 years, I guess now, and I have learned that the most risky thing in the world is to speculate on the outcome of litigation. So I won't speculate or prophesy. But I will say this, that I am familiar with the step-by-step preparation of our legal staff, and I have a very firm conviction that they have done a masterful job, and I am familiar with the evidence they've assembled. I'm familiar with the host of tremendously highly credentialed experts they've assembled, and I have a very sincere and deep-seated feeling that this material presented in a proper and skillful fashion to the court would be sufficient to convince most anyone of the rightness of our cause.
The gathering began at the Governor's House Motel with a briefing of Democratic Party officials on the game plan for the November general elections. Many of the candidates nominated in the recent Democratic primary elections were present as the November general elections were discussed. The man the group had come to hear speak for the first time as the official party nominee for governor was Fob James. The candidate warned those present not to take the November general elections lightly.
We've got an election on November 7th, and that's the general election. And anything can happen in a political campaign. It's kind of like the weather. And we do not want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, ladies and gentlemen. So I plead with you, and I beg of you, to not take anything for granted. And let's get ourselves together. And I hate to ask you to do more than you've done, because what you've already done, I can never thank you enough for it.
After the meeting, the Democratic nominees and other supporters boarded the James campaign's Readin', Writin', and Arithmetic special for a ride to the opening of the Democratic headquarters in a local shopping center. The chairman of the Democratic Executive Committee, George Lewis Bales, and Montgomery Mayor Emery Falmer cut the ribbon to officially open the headquarters. Afterwards, party members enjoyed refreshments and political talk as the various candidates got ready to campaign for the general election. Gubernatorial nominee Fob James had earlier expressed concern that the people know that he had made no decision on political appointments. He said such a decision would come only after he was governor-elect.
You know, I've never been in politics before, and I find out that rumors get started, and I wanted to tell our supporters from all over the state, as they get calls, that we're running. We have an election on November 7th, and that we've not made one commitment, major or minor, to any living soul, and we're not going to even think about that until after November 7th, and at that time we're going to sit down and try to get to Montgomery, Alabama, talented and dedicated men and women that'll get the job done for the people of Alabama. That's our commitment. That's what we believe in, and that will be our policy without exception.
How will you go about selecting your people that will be helping you in the administration?
We will make it known throughout the state, the men and women that we're looking for the various cabinet positions, the qualifications. We'll interview them and very carefully select men and women qualified to get the job done.
Tomorrow, the Democrats begin the last stretch for the November general elections. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Dr. Wayne Teague says the present competency test will help teachers determine areas where pupils are having problems and allow them to work on those areas. Teague says he thinks Alabama's form of pupil competency tests are the best of the 35 states that have them. What about teachers' competency tests? Teague says they're on their way.
A competency test will not tell how good a teacher will be, but surely a competency test, minimum competency, will tell us whether or not a teacher has what the minimum competencies or the minimum skills it takes to at least teach the students in the classroom. You know, I think what the public is tired of, and I certainly am, of getting letters, which is on my desk right now, by the way, from the teachers of this state, or any state for that matter, who wants a certificate renewed or something and can't even spell the word, you know.
Competency testing will also have an effect on social promotions, but Teague says even without the test, Alabama's pupils are receiving an improving education. He noted that Alabama's high school students are above the national average on the student achievement test scores, and that all other grades are showing vast improvements from one year to the next. George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Congressman Bill Dickinson said this would be a hard-hitting campaign, sticking to the issues, which he says are taxes and inflation. He also says the issue of seniority in Washington is important, then reminded reporters of his 7 terms in office. He says his duration in office occurred because of his being faithful to his constituents and serving their best interest. Dickinson said he would not let the campaign get into mudslinging, which he says his Democratic opponent Wendell Mitchell has already done.
Now, my opponent seems to be resorting to an old political trick, and when you have nothing positive to point to yourself, you simply attack your opponent. Let me state right now that I don't intend to spend the next few weeks remaining in this campaign personally responding to all irresponsible and outlandish attacks on me that anyone might possibly dream up. Now, my opponent should really remember the old adage that people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. As a state senator from Laverne, he is a member of the Alabama State Senate who recently was described by the leader of his own party, Governor George Wallace, as the worst in history. Also, let me quote from another of his fellow Democrats, Mr. Bob Getty. In the Alabama Journal of May 10th, Mr. Getty says, quote, "Mitchell is part of the problem in the state capitol and not a part of the answer."
Dickinson made reference to his back ailment, a slipped disc, noting that there, quote, "is a walking Wendell, but there might be a riding Bill." Dickinson said he was there for over 90% of the votes cast in this Congress. He represents a conservative voice and sees himself as the most qualified for the job. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
I know that it's necessary.
Well, of course, you must understand I'm a little prejudiced, but it's the finest ticket I've seen in 30 years of my activity in political arena. You've got a great man as the leader of the party for governor. You've got 2 of the finest candidates for the United States Senate I've ever seen. And, of course, you've got a fine congressional candidate in this district, in the 1st district, and the 6th district. Of course, the other districts are already Democratic, and they are not about to do anything else but stay Democratic. So we feel extremely good about the ticket. We just want to be sure that the people get out and vote and remember that the job is not done until it's done on November 7th.
A little earlier in his speech, another part of town, the Democratic nominee for governor, Fob James, says that it's not over yet again. What is the real threat of Republican competition in the general election?
Well, you don't ever count an election won until all the votes are in and counted. And so, like any other game or any other thing in life, you don't ever lose your sight of what your aim is and what you're going to do. And the election on November the 7th is the culmination of the election. What we've been through so far are simply party primaries. And while they are active, they are well participated in by the voters, it still is something that is not over until the general election on November 7th.